famous dog trainer Cesar Millan is used to dealing with what he calls red zone dogs, such as Emily, who was a pit bull, who took her owner out for a daily drag while barking and growling and lunging at every person and animal that dared to cross their path. So-called red zone dogs are easy to spot, according to Caesar. They're very territorial, they're aggressive, they're overprotective, and they will guard all of their resources, such as toys or food. Recently, I encountered one of these red zone dogs, and it did attack me, and it did its level best to cause me a lot of harm. But the thing is, this is a dog I know really well. And even though I know it really well, I'm not surprised that it attacked me at all. In fact, this dog tears at my tender parts quite regularly. And I have a name for this dog, and that dog's name is... No. The Lord is very gentle with me. This dog is named Ego. How can you even think such things about the Lord? For those of you who don't know, I have a German Shepherd. Her name is the Lord because the Lord is my shepherd. Okay. And she's a big girl. She's 115 pounds. So she's a big Lord. And she is the Old Testament Lord, but she's very, very gentle with me. Anyway, in chapter 19 of A Course in Miracles, it says that our egos are a lot like red zone dogs because it is, according to the Course, our ego is only capable of suspiciousness at best and viciousness at worst. And red zone dogs, they're always suspicious. They are certain that somebody is lurking around trying to steal something it believes it needs. The resources that it believes are scarce in the world, like food or attention or affection. That suspicion can turn to viciousness when its worst fears are confirmed, and it senses that somebody's out there to deprive it of what it believes it needs. And I think we can learn a lot about how to handle our suspicious and sometimes vicious egos from how Caesar handles dogs. First and most importantly, Caesar never sees a dog as hopeless or in need of elimination or destruction. Red zone dogs are that way for a reason, he says, and if you can figure it out, spoiler alert, the answer is fear, but if you can figure out the source, you can eliminate the source, or at least that underlying cause. So when we're working with our egos, it's not our goal to eliminate it, it's not even our goal to overcome it or fix it. Our goal is always to just gently oust it as the alpha dog of our lives, and instead make it an obedient part of the pack where it belongs. Our egos have a role in our lives. We need them. We need them to survive in this world, or we're just going to float around airy-fairy and not know what's going on. But some days that sounds nice. But they have to be in their proper place. It has to be dutifully walking beside us instead of snarling and growling and lunging at the world. That's the only way we thrive. So the proper place for a dog and our ego is as a companion, one that obeys us and listens to us and not the other way around. And we can take our first step in training up that ego correctly by recognizing that it constantly lives in fear. It sees the world as a scary place where the things that they believe they need are scarce and others are competing for all of those limited resources. It sees the world as completely outside of itself, where it has to orchestrate and control all of the circumstances out there before it can feel any peace or love or joy in here. It views others with suspicion and attacks those it sees as a threat to its bodily safety. Now that's a lot of fear that all of us are carrying around in our bodies, and like our beloved pets, we tend to feel protective of our fear. We see a fearful animal and we want to coddle it. We want to give it what we think it needs to feel safe. But the thing is, as the Course tells us, just recognizing the fear isn't enough. We also have to allow the Holy Spirit to show us the truth that's underneath that fear. And it's the same for us as it is for dogs. We are afraid. Our biggest fear is that we're separate, that we're separate from each other, that we're separate from God, that we're separate from ourselves, that it truly is a dog-eat-dog world, and we don't want to be the dog that's for dinner. But if we refuse to protect that fear, the Course tells us, God will reinterpret it. God will bring that fear into love by showing us exactly what we need to do to turn our red zone dog of an ego into a faithful and loving companion. And oddly enough, it is the exact same thing that Caesar recommends. 3 things: plenty of exercise, discipline, and affection. But you know, it's understandable that we want to protect our canine-like ego, because we often treat our ego like we do our pets, especially red zone pets, whose dominance we often mistake for competence. The reason dogs become aggressive is because, according to Caesar, they don't have a true leader. Dogs, by their nature, do not crave to be dominant. They crave a steady hand. They want someone they can trust to guide them and protect them. And whenever they feel such leadership is lacking, they do what they got to do to survive. And that can include becoming vicious. So the problem with red zone dogs is that they've had to take care of their own needs and desires for so long that when a leader does finally show up, they resist giving up their viciousness because it's the thing that's helped them survive. And it's become their identity. And jubilance, that's exactly what happens to us. We all desire a sense of safety, a sense that our needs are going to be met, a sense that we belong somewhere. We want to feel like we're part of a cohesive whole and not just out here in the world all by ourselves and on our own. So when we begin to awaken to that leader within ourselves, that higher divine self, and it begins to assert its proper position, we allow it to do so, the ego, just like a red zone dog, it's going to fight back at the beginning. More suspicion, more viciousness. Because it has lived so long in fear, the ego believes that our authentic self, when it does show up, when we allow ourselves to live in it, it believes that it's here to destroy it. So it lashes out with even more fury. And that was my experience with my own rabid ego dog, red zone ego. Caesar's top recommendation, though, for bringing a red zone dog under control, number 1 on that list of 3, is exercise. And of course, he's talking about literal physical exercise for a dog. You know, he'll put a dog on a leash and let it, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen, let it run while he's on rollerblades. And he'll just let that, I'm like, what if that dog like runs over a cliff? I mean, Caesar, crazy. But anyway, so he's talking about, you know, getting the anxiety out of the physical dog, just physically tiring them out, so he can work with the mind. But what our exercise means for our ego is spiritual exercises. If we can alleviate the anxiety of our ego through practices and exercises such as meditation or journaling, yoga, walks in nature, prayer, whatever works for you, then we can begin to work with our minds to soothe the ego's fear of its destruction or elimination. Now, if you've ever rescued a dog that has been abused or watched videos of people who have, you'll note that what removes a dog's suspicion and viciousness the fastest is to allow it space, to let it have time to adjust to its new surroundings. Fearful dogs, like fearful egos, don't trust easily. Sometimes all you can do with both is to just sit quietly with it, even allow it to run amok for a little bit until it wears itself out. It will try everything that it can think of to get you to react how it expects, to yell at it, to get frustrated with it, or hit it, or otherwise do it harm. So it takes time for both your ego and a scared dog to trust you enough to let you pet it, let alone cuddle it, and show it some affection. And it's ultimately that third step, affection, that we're working toward, that ability to bring our fear into love. And that's where discipline, the second part, comes in. You got to keep working with yourself. You got to keep working with your ego dog, with your red zone ego. for any of this to be effective. We have to start, though, where Caesar starts. And that is by Caesar. If you ever watch Caesar Milan, he never really trains the dog. Who does he train? The owner. Absolutely. We may not all own dogs, but everyone in this room and out there owns an ego. Every single one of them. And how it behaves is up to you. We're not, however, looking to train our ego. Or, wait a minute. Not, however, looking to our ego. Okay. We're not looking to our ego to train our ego. We have to go to our own inner Caesar, that higher divine self. That's the true owner of the ego that reinterprets our fear and helps us set those healthy boundaries and those rules and expectations. And we can only do that by realizing that the truth about both dogs and humans, and that is this: neither of us, none of us, dogs, humans, anyone, we are not our fear. As the Course says, fear and love are the only two emotions that we can have, and fear is always false. It's not even real. Because when we believe we are in fear, all we are doing is calling for love. So fear doesn't even exist. It's either love or it's a call for love. And we, like dogs, are calling out for our true pack leader to appear so we can enter that peace that we've never truly left. So if we stop protecting our fear, jubilance, the Course says it becomes meaningless. We deny its power over us to conceal the love of God that surrounds us in every moment. That is the wonder of you, jubilance. You have a universe inside of you that is made only of love. But our fearful egos aren't able to just relax and trust that yet. So we have to live fully as our higher divine pack leader, diligently using our spiritual exercises to tire out the anxious ego so that we can give it the affection it needs to become our faithful companion, and will roll over and sit on command. Dogs who are rehabilitated from the red zone are those that realize in their own canine ways the truth about themselves. They realize they're not meant to be separate. They're meant to be part of a pack that loves them and protects them. And the same is true of us, jubilants. We are not meant to believe that we are separate. We become like rabid dogs when we believe we have to fight and scrap for what we perceive as limited resources out here. No, jubilants, we are meant to realize the one wonderness that we truly are, that vastness of the universe that walks around in all of these various suits of skin and bone and blood. We realize that by stepping into our higher divine self, our higher divine pack leader, who knows how to allow our canine-like egos to begin to feel the love and the safety that it craves. And when we realize our one wonderness, our suspicions are eased, our viciousness is replaced by the true peace and gentleness that created us. Dr. Richard Dawkins writes, when that inner emptiness due to a lack of self-worth is replaced by true self-love, self-respect, and esteem, we no longer have to seek it in the world, for that source of happiness is within ourselves. It dawns on us, he says, that it cannot be supplied by the world anyway. No amount of riches can compensate for an inner feeling of poverty. I want you to feel the power of those words this morning, jubilants. No amount of riches, nothing out here in this world can compensate for an inner feeling of poverty. If you believe you are limited in here, there is nothing out here that will convince you otherwise. Because our egos are vicious and suspicious. And that ego, it is our inner feeling of poverty. Because it's afraid, because of its fear, that we're protecting, because we think it can't be true that we're that vast. When we talk about poverty, we're not talking about money. We're not talking about material stuff. This is a poverty of love and safety that makes us believe that we are the light of the world. That makes us miss that part of ourselves. That's the poverty Jesus invites us to throw off the yoke of the egoic burden, all the shoulds that this world loads us down with, all the limiting beliefs we carry around that make us suspicious and vicious. We are not what our egos say we are. We are not limited. We are not worthless. Or conversely, we're not our specialness, parading around as bravado and bluster. The whole universe, jubilance, the whole universe that creates everything, it's inside of us. Which means we are limitless. And Jesus says the burden that we do carry is very light, because the only thing that we truly carry is love. And that is never heavy. Often, though, we prefer the heavy burdens. We get a lot more attention for that. Our limiting stories, they keep us caught in all our smallness. It makes us think we can't be the vastness of all that is. So we allow the ego to tear into us, assuring us with its viciousness that we are nothing unless we prove in some worldly way that we are something, through power or wealth or fame or adoration. And we project these limitations every time we say things like, I'm working on myself. I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to overcome my problems. I'm trying to fix my limitations. That's the heavy burden. As long as the ego has you focused on doing something, fixing something, overcoming something, it's going to feel heavy. The world likes to put those heavy burdens on our shoulders, but the heaviest ones are those we put on ourselves. To expect our poor, frightened ego to create a perfect world out here that doesn't trigger its painful wounds. I just need the world to act like this, so I don't have to be in pain. But jubilance, what are you doing to yourself? Take the easier way. Give up the heavy burdens of your limitations. Embrace the wonder of you, the vastness of that universe that is inside of you. You are not separate from anything in this world. You are part of the energy that makes the grass grow. You are part of that energy that creates mountains and canyons and hurricanes and gentle summer breezes. That's what you are. That's what flows through you every single minute. And you are worried about whether somebody likes you? In chapter 9 of the Course, it tells us we have two conflicting views about ourselves. We are either our fearful ego, or we are the all that is. They both cannot be true, the Course says. You cannot evaluate an insane belief system from within it. That's what the Course says. You can't evaluate an insane belief system from within it. You can only go beyond it. And you only go beyond the ego's insane belief system by remembering who you are, the true wonder of you, that you are the unlimited vastness of all that is. We can remember who we truly are. We can only do that when we use those 3 steps to gain the trust of our red zone ego. We develop a spiritual exercise. Whatever spiritual exercise you need to do that relieves your ego's anxiety. We dedicate ourselves to those practices. That's the discipline. And we cultivate a true affection and open heart for our wounded and fearful ego self. We allow it the space to bring its fear to love. And by following these 3 steps, exercise, discipline, and affection for our fearful self, we will be transported to that place beyond all fear, beyond all doubt, beyond all limitation, beyond all suspicion and viciousness. Here there is nothing to overcome, there is nothing to fix, there is nothing to work on in this place of beyond. Here there is only the feather-light load of love that makes fear meaningless and denies its power over us. Here, in this place beyond, you can welcome your fearful canine-like ego, and instead of dealing with it or fixing it, you simply make space for it. Here you allow unconditional love and infinite patience to be shown to that fearful side. Here in this place beyond all fear, You become your red zone ego's leader, not its servant. And when you get there, you will soon find that the ego will sit, beg, roll over, and even play dead. Oh, yeah.